Just before 8:24 this morning, as a Manhattan-bound N train waited to enter the 36th Street station, an individual on that train donned what appeared to be a gas mask. He then took a canister out of his bag and opened it. The train at that time began to fill with smoke. He then opened fire, striking multiple people on the subway and in the platform.
A shooting suspect remains on the loose in New York following a shooting in the New York subway station in Brooklyn specifically. 10 people were shot at the subway station in Brooklyn. Others are also dealing with non-shooting related injuries, probably from smoke inhalation. And that's because the individual, the perpetrator here, apparently threw a canister of smoke in an effort to, I don't know, maybe blind people before he opened fire. So I want to really reiterate, this is a story that's developing and it's developing quickly. By the time you watch this video, there could be additional details that have been reported, but we did not get those details by the time we share this story. So I just want to make sure you guys know some of these details are subject to change, but here's what we know so far. So this manhunt is underway for the suspect, who is described as a man wearing a green construction vest and a gas mask. And as you heard the New York City police commissioner say earlier in the video, the suspect opened this gas canister that filled the subway car before opening fire. Shockingly and fortunately, no one is suffering from life-threatening injuries. However, 5 of the shooting victims were in critical but stable condition. So at least 16 people were injured, 10 of them by gunfire in the subway in Brooklyn during the Tuesday morning rush after a man released a canister of smoke and opened fire on an N train. At around 8:24 a.m., as the train pulled into the 36th Street station in the Sunset Park neighborhood, the man who was wearing a construction vest put on a gas mask before firing shots that hit people on the train and the nearby platform. So far, a gun and a bag of fireworks has been found at the scene. Authorities believe that the weapon he was using, the gun he was using, likely jammed, which is fortunate because there could have been far more victims had that not happened. And also people who were on the train were complaining about the smell of gasoline. And it turns out that a spray bottle full of gasoline was found on the train as well. Although that's all we know about the gasoline spray bottle. We know nothing else about it. In fact, it has not been confirmed that the gas bottle was something that the perpetrator had in his possession. We don't know. I just want to cover all bases and make sure you guys are aware of what we know for sure, what we don't know for sure. Now, shootings, unfortunately, have been on the rise throughout the country, but certainly in New York as well. Shootings in New York City have increased this year, and the uptick in violent gun crime has been a central focus for Eric Adams since he took office in January. Through April 3rd, shooting incidents rose to 296 from 260 during the same period last year, according to police department statistics. Adams has sought to reassure residents and recently deployed about half a dozen anti-gun police units, okay? So we're gonna talk about that in more detail in just a moment. But first, I do want to give you some more details about what is being reported about the perpetrator. And I'll also share some of the videos that have made their way online on social media. So as we speak, authorities are specifically looking for an Arizona U-Haul truck. I say an Arizona U-Haul truck because its license plates are Arizona license plates. The specific license plate number is A as in Apple, L as in Larry, 31408. That's AL 31408. Authorities believe that the perpetrator is the individual in the U-Haul truck. That's why they're looking for that U-Haul truck. So if you have any information about that, obviously report it to the authorities as soon as possible. And we do have some disturbing video of what the scene looked like. This video doesn't show any blood, it's not gory. It's one of these subway cars where people can hear the gunshots. From what I can tell, it's not the specific subway car that was targeted by this perpetrator, but you can hear the gunshots in the background. So let's take a quick look at that. Just absolutely terrifying, especially because you're captive if you're in a subway car that's moving. And certainly the individuals who were in the subway car that was targeted by this perpetrator were unable to escape until the car stopped. So imagine how terrifying that is, how much panic that leads to. Someone throws a smoke canister, and then immediately after that you hear the gunshots. And so again, stories developing. We'll fill you in on what we learn as it develops. But I wanted to get back to what Eric Adams is focusing his attention on. And this is certainly what most Democrats love to point to whenever mass shootings happen in the country, whenever there's gun violence in the country, they claim they want to do something about guns. Now, there is also a disconnect among the left in this country that I think is well-intentioned in wanting criminal justice reform. But in an effort of pursuing that kind of haphazardly, there are all sorts of individuals who basically don't get prosecuted for gun-related crimes. And I'm not even kidding. So I'll give you a specific example of what an official said. District Attorney Alvin Bragg, the same individual who has decided to stop pursuing criminal charges against Donald Trump, said something really interesting when he came into office in January. He announced in his day one memo that certain gun crimes would not be prosecuted. But why? Why wouldn't they be prosecuted? Isn't it kind of fascinating how he's like, yeah, I'm gonna just stop pursuing this criminal investigation into Donald Trump. He'll lie and say that's not the case, although 2 prosecutors working on that investigation stepped down because Alvin Bragg stopped pursuing the criminal investigation. But to then find out that this man doesn't think that gun-related crimes should be prosecuted, it really does blow my mind. It really does. But what I also found really interesting while I was, researching this story and trying to understand what's been going on in New York, which has been dealing with a significant increase in subway-related crimes, violent crimes, to the tune of a 55% increase, is that the left has been furious with Eric Adams and city officials for wanting to do something that I think is common sense. So in 2019, they passed their no cash bail reform, which I'm actually in favor of as it pertains to nonviolent offenders. So if you get caught with possession of drugs, I'm sorry, I don't think that you should be stuck in a jail cell until you get your day in court, especially if you don't have the funds, if you don't have the means to bail yourself out. So I think that the intention for bail reform is a good intention, but there were all sorts of violent crimes grouped into this reform, meaning that certain individuals who were caught with illegal possession of a firearm got to take advantage of that reform, even though I would argue if you get caught with an illegal gun, it's important for you to not be able to take advantage of a reform that was specifically marketed to the American people as a way of looking out for nonviolent offenders who might be living in poverty, right? So I wanna be clear, we don't know anything really about this suspect. So I'm not trying to make a point about how, this was a repeat offender who got to take advantage of no cash bail. I'm just talking about the weird contradiction that we're seeing among the left when it comes to gun-related crimes. So after that 2019 no cash bail reform was implemented, officials realized there are some things included in this that we're not comfortable with, including some violent crimes. And so they started to change things. In fact, very recently, Eric Adams and Kathy Hochul had essentially fought for certain exceptions to the no cash bail program. And I wanna give you those details right now, okay? In April of 2020, lawmakers expanded the list of crimes eligible for pretrial detention, including certain hate crimes, leaving the scene of a fatal accident, criminal possession of a weapon on school grounds, money laundering, and criminally negligent homicide. I think that makes sense. I think that anyone who poses a threat to public safety should not be able to take advantage of no cash bail, especially if they are caught with possession of an illegal weapon. The agreement gives judges considering bail more discretion to take into account factors such as defendants' gun records or whether they have violated an order of protection. It would also add certain gun crimes to the list of offenses that are eligible for bail and make it easier for police to arrest people who have received multiple appearance tickets in a short time period. Those measures are in tandem with other criminal justice proposals Governor Kathy Hochul has emphasized, including making it easier to charge someone with illegal gun trafficking. I don't know, I think that sounds super reasonable, everyone, especially since the left has been calling for stricter gun regulations for as long as I can remember. But it turns out the left in New York, not in favor of these changes to the no cash bail program. Okay, so on the party's left, the bail changes drew sharp rebukes, with progressives saying changes to the original laws take back advances the state made in protecting people from low income and minority communities from discrimination in the criminal justice system. Brooklyn Democratic Assembly member Latrice Walker criticized the deal after being one of the architects of the 2019 reforms. Walker said in a statement that the largest changes will, quote, roll back progress the state has made toward ending the criminalization of poverty because the initial law ended cash bail in most cases. I don't know about you guys, I don't want to end cash bail in most cases. I want to end cash bail in cases pertaining to non-violent crimes, not in cases pertaining to gun-related crimes. So let me ask you guys something, because I'm very curious. What is the point in fighting for gun regulations if you're not going to prosecute people who are breaking those gun-related regulations? What is the point? How is that criminal justice reform? I'm not buying it. And I get it, the left, some members of the left, they've built their brand on being incredibly pure. But I'm sorry, zero tolerance policies, whether it's in the direction of criminal justice reform or against criminal justice reform, is not the solution. There is no point in fighting for or advocating for gun laws if you're also simultaneously gonna push district attorneys to not prosecute gun-related crimes. It's stupid, it's stupid. And if you're worried about judges being discriminatory in how they make decisions about no cash bail related to gun crimes, how about judges don't get to make that decision? How about if you get caught with an illegal weapon, if you're breaking gun laws, how about you don't get to take advantage of no cash bail, period? Because you are a threat to public safety. Owning, possessing, using illegal weapons is not what I had in mind when it came to the no cash bail program or reform. So look, again, we don't know the details about the perpetrator here. We don't know if he's from Arizona, even though he allegedly was in a U-Haul truck with Arizona plates. We know nothing really, so the story's developing. But I do think that if the left or Democrats are gonna start proposing solutions to the very obvious uptick in crime that we're seeing in the country, you don't really have a leg to stand on if you're simultaneously calling for, no prosecution or no cash bail for violent offenders, including people who commit gun-related crimes. And again, Alvin Bragg not pursuing criminal charges against Donald Trump for what his own former personal lawyer said was financial fraud is just fascinating when he then turns around and says certain gun crimes won't be prosecuted. Don't agree with that. I think that's a stupid system. And by the way, we should also take a look at how New Yorkers feel about this. 60% say that crime is a very serious problem across New York, with another 31% saying it's somewhat serious. Closer to home, 27% say crime in their community is a very serious problem, and another 36% say somewhat serious. Nearly 1/4 of New Yorkers are very concerned they may be the victim of crime. And while the left wants to minimize the increase in violent crime that we're seeing in major cities across the country, I would argue that it's a bad tactic if you do want to pursue common sense criminal justice reform. I think that that's actually something that we should pursue. I think that's something that's important. I'm not making an argument here that our criminal justice system has been too lenient or has a history of being too lenient. I do think that in a well-intentioned effort to pursue criminal justice reform, certain reforms were passed without really thinking about the unintended consequences. And we should fix those unintended consequences instead of making excuses for it, because that window for criminal justice reform is closing quickly with people feeling concerned about the uptick in crime. Even if you don't think the uptick in crime is a big deal, if the majority of people in your community think it is a big deal, you shouldn't minimize it, you should take it seriously. And finally, by a 65 to 27% margin, voters say the so-called bail reform law should be amended to give judges more discretion to keep dangerous criminals off the streets, rather than the law shouldn't be amended to give discretion on bail back to judges, because it could once again lead to people of color being disproportionately denied bail. Again, I just think if it has to do with a violent crime involving guns, why are we even having a debate about whether or not the perpetrator, should take advantage of a reform that, again, was marketed to the American people as something that would only benefit individuals who have been accused of a nonviolent crime? So we'll see what happens. It's very, very likely that the pendulum is going to swing right back to where we do not want it to swing, which is mass incarceration, which is all sorts of punitive measures that end up having their own set of unintended and terrible consequences. And so either we take the situation seriously, either we are consistent on how we feel about strengthening gun laws, or we act like a bunch of clowns who minimize the very real issue that we're seeing, again, in a lot of these major cities across the country.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.